Every day I rescue people all across the earth like Superman himself. I am a guardian angel in the sky. I possess all the powers of Superman Prime and Hyperion, and I have absolutely none of their weaknesses. And then in outer space I saw it, an asteroid and another asteroid, and NASA and the earth became aware of it before I even flew high in the sky, but the entire human race heard it as I took off from the earth to meet the asteroids head on, and everyone in the cameras in space saw it as I flew towards two asteroids that would have destroyed the earth with their massive size, and the entire human race watched as I punched the two giant asteroids, and the entire human race witnessed it as I shattered two massive asteroids that would have destroyed the earth. And then the entire earth heard and saw it as I screamed and roared loudly as I said just two words, Hyperion punch, and then my fist glowed bright with a golden light and I shattered the asteroids, and then the entire hive mind of all the symbiotes attached to my body. But when the symbiotes attached to my body and DNA, they absorbed enough of DNA to power them all forever, and because of that the symbiotes never had to feed again. And then the rest of the symbiotes left my body and went to earth, but the black symbiote, the venom symbiote, stayed on my body and bonded with my DNA. Because of me the symbiotes became what they were always meant to be, the next stage of human evolution, and fire didn't burn them and nothing could no longer destroy them. And then venom formed all around my body like a living thing, and he said, Franklin Richards, you are a remarkable human. I've never seen anyone with memories like yours. I like you. You seem like a good kid. Now wake up, Franklin. And then I said, armor activate, and then I flew back down to earth. And then Venom spoke inside my mind and he said, holy shit, that was fun. I'm really going to enjoy being a part of this body. And then I said, why didn't you just eject yourself like the others did? And then Venom said, oh hell no, I'm staying right here where I belong. And then I said, okay. And then slowly all over the earth the symbiotes found good people to bond with, and then I asked, what is it you do exactly? And then Venom said, well, that's just offensive. And then Venom appeared to me in the form of a head and started talking, and I said hello, and he said hi. And then I asked, why are you all here? And then he said, well, our original plan was to feed off an entire planet, but thanks to you there's no need for that anymore. Now we can all face our father Null and kill him thanks to you, or whatever you are. I've read your memories and you have lived an extraordinary life, Franklin Richards. And then he said, and you have many wives, I see, how lovely. And who are the X-Men? And then Venom said excitedly, never mind, I already know who they are. They're your family. And then he saw the memories of my parents being tragically murdered by Dr. Doom. And then Venom said, I'm sorry about your parents, but it looks like you killed the one responsible for the murder of your parents. His name was Dr. Doom, and even his name is stupid and ridiculous. And I said yes, and I don't want to revisit that memory right now, if you don't mind. And then Venom said, I know it's a sore topic for you and I'll just file that away for a later occasion. Forget I mentioned it, Venom said excitedly. And then I said, I have to go back home and see my wives, but I really don't know how this will affect them. And then Venom said, all it will do is create red symbiotes within the DNA of your no doubt very powerful children, if you should impregnate one of your wives, of course. And then I asked him, so do you have a beast form? And then he said, I thought you would never ask. And then I transformed completely into Venom. And then Venom said excitedly, oh, I couldn't do that before. And then I asked Venom, what do you mean? And then he said, oh, it's nothing, I can just use Mysterium metal as a component metal for my cellular structure now. And then I smiled big and said, that's great, could you make me a gun? And then he said, really, why would you even want a gun? And then he said, oh fine, just go look at a gun and I can use my new powers to make a Mysterium metal gun. And then I smiled really big and Venom asked me, why are you smiling like that? And then I said, don't worry, I won't choose a complex gun. And then he said, oh thank God, but it doesn't matter anyway, because once you touch a gun I can completely analyze it with my symbiote powers. And then I frowned and said, hey. And then he said, well, I just don't like being inside something that's small. And then I went to a surplus gun store and I looked at a lot of guns and I touched them all. And then he said, are we done now, because I'd really like to leave? And then I said, just wait, I would like to see those Desert Eagles please. And then the gun store owner asked me, are you going to buy something, fella? And then I said, I'll buy those Desert Eagles from you.